Good afternoon, everyone. We will get started in just a minute or so. So get yourself settled in, get a piece of paper to write some notes and some thoughts, and we'll get started at 1. So good afternoon, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us on this webinar today with the Big Give. Let me know at any point if you have any problems with the sound or the display. We've got the chat box, and you can drop myself a message, or our friend Sahil from Big Give is also on here for any technical questions about the webinar or about your campaign. So this afternoon, we are going to be looking at promoting your Christmas Challenge campaign. So you may have already been on some of our other 3 webinars that we've done together about the other aspects of planning and promoting your Christmas Challenge campaign. Today, we're going to be specifically looking at the different methods and media you can use for this. My name's Lindsay Harrod. I work at the FSI, and we're a charity that work with lots of small charities around fundraising, especially. And before this, I was a fundraiser in a small charity where I did participate in the Christmas Challenge myself for our small charity. So I have been there, done that with you guys. I feel your excitement and your pain as well. So I hope we share some good ideas today. So we have about an hour together this afternoon. I'm going to be presenting for about 3/4 of that time, and then we'll leave lots of time for questions at the end. These can be questions about ideas you've had, and throughout the session, please do share your ideas or examples you've seen from other places in the chat box, because that sort of stuff's really useful for other charities to hear about as well. You won't be able to raise any verbal questions, but we do want this to be really interactive. So use the chat box or the Q&A function to send over your questions. I will try and keep checking in on the chat box as we go through the session, but most of it we'll make sure we have time right at the end for some proper questions. You will get access to the Q&A and the slides after the webinar, and you'll also, I believe there's going to be a recording of this webinar sent out as well. You have a marketing guidebook, which the lovely people at the Big Give have sent you through. So make sure you check through that and follow along today, because that's going to be your kind of Bible for this campaign. So first of all, another big welcome to the Christmas Challenge. Well done on all your hard work so far. As I said, I've been there. I know that even before the campaign even starts, there's lots of work that goes into it, and getting your pledges, champions if you have secured a champion funds as well, and starting to build up your messaging and your projects. So this is a little reminder about the campaign, which is running the 3rd to the 10th of December. Do check out your dashboard for resources to help you market the campaign. There's lots of stuff that Big Give really want you to make this a success. So these webinars, those resources, your marketing guidebook will really help you do that. And yet Christmas does feel a little while away, although we've all seen the mince pies in the shop, etc. But it really is time to start thinking about this now. And certainly from my experience, the further ahead you plan, the further ahead you draft your materials, you get a plan in place, and you get the whole team on board, the easier and more successful your Christmas challenge will be. Just one quick reminder about how the matching works. Remember, your matching pot is formed of both pledge funds and champion funds. If you've secured a champion match, your first donations come from your pledges and then from the champions. So that really is the hook for a lot of the supporters, is that doubling. Their £1 donation is worth £2, £20, £40. So that's what you really want to be drawing attention, and make sure you've got your head around as well. One question already so far. You can get the marketing guidebook. Sahil, you can probably direct them, but there are lots of resources in your dashboard, which you can access by logging into your charity account and clicking there's a black button to access it. So first things first, how do we select our promotional channels? So promotional channels being the different tools that you can use and the ways you can reach your audience. Hopefully you've thought about who you think your potential supporters will be for the campaign. You've thought about your objectives of what you want to achieve for the campaign, and that might not just be how much you want to raise, but also do you want to reach new audiences, or do you want to increase the support of existing donors? So thinking about your objectives and then thinking about actually where are those target audience already? Where will they be accessing information about your campaign? You don't have to do everything for every person. So think about what will really work well for your campaign and your audience. So for instance, if one of your objectives is to reach new supporters, so expanding your mailing list or your database, you will need to be promoting beyond your own email list and website. People won't come to you organically necessarily. You need to be thinking about how you can get out there. But our top tip really is to think about what you're already using. We know in smaller charities, it's really difficult to invest in marketing budget and capacity. So don't reinvent the wheel. Think about where people already are, where you've got traction already. So that might be your website, it might be direct mail if you've got addresses, it might be email, telephone, events you're already running, social media, etc. We'll be going through all of those different tools in a lot more detail throughout this webinar today. Don't forget, you always want the call to action, and that's driving your audience to your Christmas Challenge campaign page. So make sure your campaign page is appealing as well. So that's not just an admin section, that has to have that engaging content, your photos, images, your stories, and the reasons why people should support you. One note that your campaign page link will likely change soon, so do watch the space for info from the Big Give on this. But in the meantime, we suggest you create a landing page on your website, which has all the info, those images, etc. And then you can add your Christmas Challenge campaign link later once it's ready. So let's start running through a few of the different tools and ways you can engage your audiences. The big one is website. Hopefully most of us have a website now. This is going to be a really important place for promoting your Christmas Challenge messages. A few of our top tips on this. Do include prominent information about the campaign and think about how that reflects your campaign messaging. You might want to have it on your homepage, so often people have a slider or a header on their homepage or a big box when people first land. So if you do have any organic traffic coming to your website, people know about it, know how they can support you. If you don't already have a support us page on your website, I would heavily recommend thinking about building one. And that could highlight all the different ways people could support you through corporate giving, trusts, regular donations, but also particularly at this time of the year, the Christmas Challenge campaign. So again, if anyone's looking at how they can support you, Christmas Challenge is up there front and center. News updates. If you have a news section or a blog section, think about making sure that's up to date as well. And that's talking about some of the stories or the kind of press releases around your Christmas campaign. Don't forget to keep your content dynamic and changing. You want to update it in the lead up to and during the campaign. So that might be different stories that you bring out, but also during the campaign, your messaging will change. You might want to update it as to where you are against your targets or how much left there is to raise to really drive that engagement and make sure that people know and understand the urgency of the campaign. That's one of the real strengths of doing a match funding campaign in this way, is that you have that time-bound thing. So make sure you're maximizing that. Do send people to your project page, but remember that donations are only doubled from during that campaign period. So you want to make sure those dates are very clear and the link is there during that time. Here's a few useful tools to have a think about. Google Analytics. If you're not already familiar with Google Analytics, it's a little bit confusing. And there's another alternative, Smiletics. Is that how you say it? It's a lovely spelt word. That can help you understand where people are already engaging with your website, what pages are most popular, how long people are staying on your pages when they're clicking off. And that can give you some quite raw data to have a think about improving engagement on your website and making the most of it. Nibbler is a free tool for testing how good your website is and what you can do to improve it. So that checks its accessibility. Does it work on different devices? It checks your SEO, which is short for search engine optimization. In essence, this means you want to ensure that your content is maximized for SEO, which means it's higher up the search engine rankings. So say if a wonderfully generous donor was just Googling local charities working with young people in their area, you would be further up that. So have a look at Nibbler for some thoughts about how you can improve your SEO. That also looks at your social media, your compliance, and a few other bits as well. Addthis.com gives you a code to create share this buttons. So those little buttons that come up on blogs, on news stories, on pages, so your followers can easily share it to Facebook, to Twitter, to LinkedIn, etc. So it also includes some analytics on how the buttons are used. So again, if you've got people already coming to your website, make the most of it, use their networks as well. This is an example of a really prominent Big Give homepage. So this is from Doctors of the World, I believe. So they, on their homepage, this is what comes to it. So anyone who's driving organic traffic to their website, anyone who's coming to their website will see this front and center. That tagline, one donation, twice the impact. It's quite engaging imagery. It really encourages people to click through. I also like how they've got please donate in a different color, so that up on the menu bar is in bright orange, which draws the eye much more than the other areas. Another example from the Royal College of Music. They have this under their support us page, and some very simple wording and very easy to understand kind of messaging around what the Big Give is and how your supporters can get involved. So keep it simple. You don't need to create flashy graphics or slidey interactive things, but having that information means that anyone who is already wanting to support you or finds out about it through other means, which we'll come on to, will have that information ready to go. Email is going to be one of the key tenets to your promotional campaign. If you've got a mailing list of supporters, this is going to be the kind of one of the key areas that you gain more engagement. So we suggest you plan several targeted emails. You might want to send a pre-launch or a save the date. Often this is really nice for analyzing those really engaged people. So if someone a few weeks before clicks, yes, I want to hear a reminder when the Big Give Christmas Challenge launches, you know they're pretty engaged and a bit warmer than people who haven't clicked. So that's something to think about. Then you might want to send an email on the day of the launch, and that will include your messaging and that kind of really key compelling storytelling around why people should support you. A progress update, and you might choose to segment this. So for people who've already donated, if your database has capability for this, you might want to send a progress update to people who've already donated. For instance, saying we're 80% of the way there, can you help us get the final bit by spreading the word? And then a different one to people who haven't donated yet. Be part of the last hurdle to kind of hit our target. And then a final progress and thank you as well. Do not forget to thank all your donors. It's so crucial for your ongoing stewardship of them and for ensuring that they feel valued as your supporters. We've got a question from Rich. Says, when would be a good time to send a save the date email to supporters? So there's no fixed rule on this. Think about what other comms you have going out already. But in the past, I've often sent them maybe 3 or 4 weeks in advance, or maybe if you know you have a large mailing that gets a good engagement, you might want to pop it in that as well. But yeah, there's no fixed kind of fixed recommended time. So think about how often you tend to email people, but I reckon a few weeks before would make the difference. Remember to send people directly to your campaign page once it's live. There's some lots of interesting theory around this and around nudge theory, etc. But making sure you remove any obstacles or opportunities for people to get diverted from their journey to donating to you. So in your call to action, your email, send them straight to the place where it's easiest for them to donate. So once that campaign page is live, you want to make sure you're sending them to the Big Give website rather than yours, which might give them an opportunity to get distracted by some of the other great content on your website. Have a think about how you can personalize your emails, even just from using their name if your mailing list is set up like that, but also segmenting. So thinking about segmenting different groups, perhaps people who've supported the Big Give in the past or this project in the past, people who are completely new to you, or maybe volunteers or a different group. So really think about all your different audiences and what they might want to hear about from you and what they might find most engaging. And do your best to personalize without creating tons of work for yourself, but it's definitely worth segmenting and personalizing a little bit. Don't forget to provide that clear call to action and a reminder that donations are double. So you can have the best storytelling in the world, the most moving case study, but if you don't give them the link or an easy way to support you and the urgency around the doubled match funding campaign, it will have been wasted effort. Don't rely on them following up to Google or to go on your website to find out the information. Make it as easy as possible for them to say yes and donate. A few more useful tools. MailChimp, if you're not already using some sort of email marketing platform, this has a free account option, and it does have lots of clever things around segmenting or tagging your different audiences. You can also see the success of previous campaigns, so open rates, click-through rates, what links were most popular, what links didn't get the clicks. And even without kind of trained marketing expertise, this can be really useful data to improve your marketing going forward. Touchstone is a subject line analyzer. So this, if you pop in what subject line you're thinking of using, it will give you a few tips or recommendations for making it as engaging as possible and getting those open rates as high as possible. So it's really helpful to get past that kind of crucial first step of people even opening the email before they get to the brilliant content within. Litmus Scope, that lets you view your emails in a desktop version, a mobile version, or a text-only version. So if we know that a lot of people are opening, a majority even, I think now, are opening their emails on their mobile. So you want to make sure that your emails look good there as well. But also we might have people who don't have HTML-enabled emails and want the text-only version. So you need to make sure it works in all those different formats. And then YAM, which stands for yet another mail merge.com. That's a simple tool for sending some bulk mail merged emails. So you can get a bit of that personalization through that. Here's an example from a previous Big Give Christmas Challenge participant orchestra of the Swan. This is their save the dates email. So they really honed in on that one donation, double the impact. They've highlighted the dates, and it's very simple, quick to call to action. So that big red button, sign up here to be reminded when the Big Give launches. So put the dates in your diary now and help us by signing up below. Oh yeah, great point from Sahil. If you are typing in the webinar chat box and you want the questions or guidance from anyone, please remember when it says to drop it down and select all panelists and attendees. If you put it to just all panelists, only I'll be able to see it, and that means that we won't get the input from other people as well, and other people can't hear what you're talking about as well. So with the save the date, you could organize this in a number of different ways. So one of the simplest ways is just from that sign up here link, create a Google form, which just has perhaps their name and their email address, and that counts as their opt-in consent to hear about the Big Give when it launches. And then you can just use that to mail merge it or to re-upload into MailChimp as your kind of most engaged group later on. Here's another example from Orchestra of the Swan. This is their kind of less HTML version. That really lovely quote at the start. explaining what the Christmas challenge is, and then talking about the impact of their work. I really like as well how they've kind of tied it into their tone as an organisation. So if you read that bit under "for 1 week only," when said out loud, it sounds very music hall. So it's a little bit informal. It ties into their musical kind of prospects and their interests, and those different bits of bold and bullet points really draw the eye. So that last one was an email I think they sent on the launch day. And here was one that, this was the one from the launch day, sorry. So that big call to action button in the middle. And they also, interestingly, offered the alternative around not doing it online. So think about your audiences, thinking about what they want. So another promotional tool you can use that might fit in well with an email or with your website is thinking about video. So it can already be planned into existing activity. They also work exceptionally well on social media. We know that pictures get a lot more likes or engagements than just texts on Facebook and Twitter, but video gets even more again. So it's really worth thinking about. And you don't need the glitziest camera or the most high-profile editor. Lo-fi, handmade, homemade videos can be really impactful as well. It's particularly great for showing the impact that people's donations will have, so really bringing those stories to life, hearing from beneficiaries or from the people you work with, perhaps hearing from staff and different perspectives and volunteers. So you can really bring that to life through videos. One nice thought is to have a think about, are there any really close donors or supporters you have who could talk about why they're supporting you and why other people should as well? So why it feels so good to be part of your organization and making a difference, being part of your journey. Ask them to tell that story and bring others on board as well. A few useful tools, a smartphone. Honestly, that's all you need these days to make a really nice homemade video that comes from the heart. No one is expecting big glitzy documentaries from small charities. So make the most of what you already have to hand and make the most of those stories, those tales, and the people. Vimeo and YouTube are two of the most popular and free video hosting sites, so definitely ones to check out. You might be able to embed videos directly to your page as well. Hopefully if you've got WordPress or something like that, you should be able to get a plugin to do that easily enough. And that's definitely worth it. Again, trying to reduce the number of clicks that people have to make. Magisto.com is a good free app to create animations using still photos. So you don't even need to get a video camera or smartphone out. You can create a video using existing images you have already. We're now going to try and view a video. An example from a campaign a couple of years ago from Chicken Shed Theatre. Hopefully you'll be able to hear this okay.
Fulfilling.
Fun.
Diverse.
Iridescent.
Expressive.
Safety.
Exciting.
Home.
Interesting.
Challenging.
Innovative.
Free.
Amazing.
This year, Chicken Shed has been selected to take part in The Big Give, an online fundraising challenge which enables all donations given between the 28th of November and the 5th of December to be doubled, making twice the difference to young lives. Chicken Shed is aiming to raise a total of £12,000 to enable even more children and young people to access our inclusive performing arts activities that truly change lives. But we need your help. For 1 week only, every penny you give will be doubled. If you donate £1, we'll receive £2. If you donate £10, your donation is worth £20, and if you donate £100, you're actually giving an amazing £200. Visit thebiggive.org.uk to make your big gift. Thank you.
Get a perspective you wouldn't normally.
I just feel like it's a place where you can just, come and express yourself.
Makes me more confident in myself. allowing me to like believe in like my ideas.
I feel like it's a place where like everyone has a say.
So hopefully that worked for you and you could see that okay. I'll just check. What did you think about that video? Have you got any thoughts about how that could work for your organization? What stories could you bring to life that way? Gemma asks, what's the best way to direct donors to the Big Give page from a video? A link with the accompanying post or a URL in the video? So sometimes with certain video uploading things, you can have a link at the end that will direct people to it. But yeah, definitely just put the link as many places as possible, really, to make sure that however they see it, they've got that call to action. You can also put it in the description of the video. That might work quite well if you're linking it externally, so it's going on to YouTube or Vimeo, put it in the description. Or if you've embedded it into your website, put it right next to that video on your website. Any other thoughts? Do share them in the box about how you can do that. Here's some other examples which we touched on in the first webinar of this series from South London Cares, who tested a video back in 2017 and found it got really great engagement. But one thing they learned was actually they kind of used up their engagement in advance of the campaign. So for 2018, they decided to create 2 videos instead. So they had one, an informational video, which talked about what their winter wellbeing project was and talked about what the Big Give campaign is and what difference that would make. So that they launched in advance of the Big Give Christmas Challenge, and that kind of got people involved, got them engaged, and gave them the information. And then they did that 2 weeks before, and then actually at the launch time of the campaign, they had a second video which focused on what South London Cares means in a broader sense. So not just the project, but also hearing directly from the neighbours involved and really kind of pulling on those heartstrings and the stories around their work. And they found that that worked really well, rather than using up all their kind of engagement ahead of the campaign launching, which had happened previously, to have those 2 different videos. So think about how that might work for your organisation. Probably lots of stories to tell there, lots of interesting people who can really tell what your organisation means to them. Then you want to be using your videos on social media. So think about what platforms your target audiences are engaging with. Are they likely to be on Facebook? Do you have a decent Twitter following? Or do you have quite a lot of perhaps younger donors on Instagram or supporters or followers? And even LinkedIn, if maybe you have a lot of business contact, don't forget to use those contacts. They might share it. If you've got some corporate partners, sharing things on LinkedIn might work really well. Try to be really content-led in your social media. So not just reposting the link. Think about things like those videos, like images or quotes, things like that. Think about hashtags as well. If you've got a really particular niche or a network that you think you can tap into, have a little think about how that might work for you. Do you have any more well-known supporters or some influencers in your networks? So that could be someone who doesn't necessarily is a donor already, but they might be a volunteer or have just tweeted about your work before, or that you just notice you follow them. There's some websites online which I haven't put here, but it just came into my mind, where you can see who your most high profile followers are on Twitter. So that might be worth checking out. I think if you Google that, you'll be able to find it, and seeing, are they someone who's engaged with your organization and could spread the word for you to their networks. A few useful tools for social media. Canva is a brilliant website, along with GIMP and PicMonkey, which will help you put together images or kind of graphics. So they can be just plain with wording, or you can upload a photo and put some wording, or collages of different photos. Really easy to use, a sort of drag and drop situation, and some really nice templates, which can make your kind of online social media images look quite professional for free and very easy without any prior experience. Facebook advertising can be really cost effective. It's a great way to reach out to new audiences who might not already be aware of your charity or your campaign. You can target particular demographics or different kind of target groups of people. So you can target it based on who else they like. So maybe organizations in a similar sphere to you, or perhaps on a local basis. If you're a local charity, you might want to target people who like the local cafe or the local organizations. So think about Facebook advertising. Might be worth quite a small investment, can bring quite high engagement if you use it right. If you don't have many photos of your own, there are some free websites like iStock, Shutterstock, and Pexels, where you can get some free, some paid, high quality stock images. Link shorteners as well, it's definitely something to think about. If your link is really long to your website or to your campaign page, you can save some space by using tinyurl or bit.ly. Those are, again, free, easy to use, and they also allow you to track the engagement on those links. So you could set up different ones for different promotional channels and see which one gets the most clicks, and that might be next year where you decide to invest more of your time. Finally, Hootsuite or TweetDeck. One of my top tips, as I said before, around a successful Christmas challenge campaign is not leaving it all up to the day. So if you can schedule in as much as possible on Hootsuite or TweetDeck, you can do this weeks in advance. It leaves you more time during the week for the more responsive and reactive activity. Great, just checking for any questions. Here are some examples from Christmas Challenge participants last year, Action for ME. They had lots of different social posts featuring their stories, and these are focused on different phases of their campaign, including post-campaign, which is a really useful thing. Don't forget to kind of build on that momentum as well. So you can see on this left-hand one, they've used something like Canva or even just Paint to create an image with some text as well. So that tells the context of the story and kind of draws people in. We know, as I said, that images and videos get far more engagement than purely text tweets. They had some short films telling the stories of some of their people who've worked with them and their experiences of living with ME. Those videos were seen more than 6,000 times on Facebook and 2,500 times on Twitter. So that's a huge reach, especially if those people, or if that's moved people and they're sharing it, especially when it's accompanied by the post or tweet emphasizing the match funding aspect of the campaign. I love this. One of their supporters commented on one of the videos saying, "I love this. I can't afford to donate much, but this is the perfect opportunity to give what I can, as every pound becomes £2. Magic." So then you start building up some conversation as well and some traction by engaging with people in the comments too. Don't forget some of the more old-fashioned ways of engaging people, those old kind of traditional promotional tools. Personal approaches are really, really effective. Particularly prioritize those who you want to make significant gifts. So it wouldn't be necessarily appropriate to ask for a four-figure gift over a one-off cold email. You want to be cultivating them perhaps over the year in advance as well, but certainly in the lead up to the campaign, and making personal one-to-one approaches. It might not be you who's best placed to make that approach. It might not be a fundraiser or the chief exec. It might want to come from the chair, or a trustee to trustee, volunteer to volunteer, beneficiary to beneficiary. So think about who might have the best kind of perspective to make that ask. Think about what their motivations are. So what do you already know about them? What have they engaged with before? What can you see excites them? What are their values, what they care about? And personalize your ask using this information. And don't forget to remind them that donations for this period can be doubled. So a significant gift can become even more significant and could really be transformational in a way. And direct mail, so writing letters, posting out letters to people, can be a way of reaching your target audience if they do tend to engage offline rather than online. So online giving is really powerful and can reach new audiences, but we know that people still respond really well to letters as well. So if it's relevant, you might want to do at least one mailing. I definitely have a think about who you could do that and segment it again. So maybe I've done it before. People who haven't opened our newsletter for the past year, but are still kind of subscribed or engaged with us in other ways, I'd maybe send them something by post if I think that's going to reach them better than the newsletter. You can send an early Christmas card or a postcard as a reminder. So it doesn't have to be a kind of straightforward letter format in a formal way. You could send something engaging with a photo or a story, a case study right up top, or a quote to kind of bring it to life a little bit. And use a memorable link to your project page. So don't include something that's 300 characters long. Try and use one of those bit.ly or something personalized. Another angle to think about, particularly if one of your objectives is to reach new people or to raise the profile of your organization, think about creating some press releases for local or sector press. So think about what will really be of interest to their readers. So one thing to know about engaging the press is making it targeted to them. So not just sending out a blanket press release to 30 different newspapers for whom it's not really relevant. Think about who their audience is, what they want to know about, and how your stories and your organization can meet that. Particularly local angles work really well. We saw some examples in a minute, or some sections around, if it's sector press, so something around the audience that you reach and what they're interested in. Personal stories can really work. We know that people are much more motivated to engage with the story of one individual than the statistics of 100. So use those stories, case studies, images to get coverage. Start your thinking about press ASAP, really, because there will be publication on copy deadlines well in advance. You can send it in advance with a kind of embargo until the campaign launches, or you might want to use it to build up momentum in advance of it. Try and build up relationships with your press as well. So it works much better than a cold press release if you know someone, if you've got the right person to send it to, and you've already had a chat with them and a relationship with them. The Big Give has some press release guidance available in the resources, and there are some websites like My News Desk, which provides tools to distribute your press release, as well as some accompanying training and support. It does come at a fee, but if you decide that that is a priority for you, it might be something to invest in. Another angle to think about, events again. So it's not all online. Face-to-face can be really impactful as well. So think about, do you have already some events planned? You maybe have a volunteer social, you have a Christmas party around that year, or you have your AGM, something like that. If you've already got things in the diary or planned, how can you kind of piggyback on that with the Big Give and engage all those people there? You could also host a one-off event or a unique event for those donors who might not otherwise donate online. So Sahil mentioned you can do a kind of donating party or a drop-in thing, but you could also do some cultivation events too for donors too. Think about whether you have any volunteer fundraisers who might want to host an event as well. You could use things like Eventbrite, which is a ticketing system which has no cost for free events, definitely worth noting. It does cost if your tickets cost, but if it's free, then it's free for you. And have a think as well about, don't create tons of extra stress and work for yourself. Make it as easy as possible with project management tools like Asana or Trello. They both have free versions and are really great if you have lots of tasks and people to juggle, especially if you might not all be in the office all at one time, or you've got remote people or volunteers involved. Some of those online tools can really work well. question from Gemma. And I would love to hear anyone else's thoughts as well if you've had experience of direct mail. Top tips for postal comms. So Sahil will answer about the check giving, but top tips for postal comms. There's some really good resources online. I think we've got some on the FSI website as well around writing successful appeal letters. So key things to think about are definitely personal stories, opening up with that. Don't be afraid to open with something a bit punchy and a bit eye-catching. It doesn't have to be a we are proud to announce that next week we will be taking part in the Christmas challenge. You might want to open with, maybe you have a really powerful quote from someone you've helped. You might want to open with that, talking about the impact that gifts will have. And you might want to think about a sort of shopping list. So what gifts at different levels, what impact that would have. So what a £10 donation could buy, what a £50 donation could support, or what a £100 donation could support. That can work quite well. And I definitely think get creative, keep it in the tone of your organization, and also think about who should be signing it. So probably someone quite senior in your organization, but it also could be someone a bit different. So again, with the personal approaches, I've seen really nice appeal letters from directly from beneficiaries or service users to supporters, or from the chair might work well, or from a current donor to someone of a similar demographic. If you have any other experience or you've done a direct mail campaign that's worked really well for you, please do share some thoughts in the chat box using all panelists and attendees for Gemma and the rest of us. Here we can see some of that in action. So Orchestra of the Swan, whose emails we saw earlier, they did a press release, and that did get picked up in some local press over here. Particularly, they were really interested in the dementia angle of what they do, and the local angle as well. So they say our very own Orchestra of the Swan. So think about that local focus. And it also got picked up online as well. So make sure you have a good image ready for that, because they will definitely want to use that on an online thing. And here's some feedback from Action for ME, who again, we saw their social media posts earlier. They used an event to real success around their Christmas challenge. They had their annual conference on the 28th of November. So that was that year during the middle of Christmas challenge week. And it was a wonderful opportunity to talk to their supporters about the campaign. A number of their beneficiaries presented at the conference. They also shared short film clips talking about the support. And it was a really moving, brilliant, immediate way of demonstrating impact. Amazingly, one supporter was so inspired by these speakers and these stories. They were so inspired, they donated £5,000 to the Big Give campaign right there and then. So that's an amazing opportunity. You know, if you've already got people in the room, make the most of it. I'm just checking questions. Emma has asked, we're thinking about how to make it easy for people to give while actually attending an event. So a shortened process for people using their mobile phones to give, or a way to link a contactless card reader to the donation page. So he'll probably best placed to answer some of those technical things, but I would, think about the different ways that you could use it there. I've done it before. I think we had like tablets up and ready with the page there. That worked quite well. Or just a quiet moment for people to do it. Or you could take it old school and do a pledge kind of thing, and then you've got the contact details and you can call them up the next day with a reminder or an email reminder with the link, something like that. Emma asks, are people in that case put off by entering their details while in public? Obviously, that's a consideration. I would take that into account. They definitely weren't in the middle of the room. They were sort of tablets that you could spin around, move. So think about what works with the space you've got or whatever's already going on. But it's no different really to signing up to a direct debit in public or things like that. So have a think about how that could work. So we're just going to move on to a case study from a really successful charity who took part last year, and they actually won an award for the 2018 Christmas Challenge for their multi-channel marketing. So they use promotional tools really, really well. What I really like about this is National Animal Welfare Trust. They first thought about their objectives, so what they wanted to achieve from this campaign, but then they also thought about the challenges they anticipated they might encounter. So they know that sometimes Open Paw, which is the project they were hoping to fund, is a little bit complex, it's a little bit unusual, so they knew they'd had challenges before, explaining it in a quick kind of elevator pitch way and talking about why it's different from other rescue charities. They also were worried about the difficulties of raising awareness of the campaign early, so building that momentum, but also keeping people aware that the donations won't be matched until a certain period of time. So that is a tricky balance to strike, and I think it's really interesting how they met that. And they were also really keen to make sure that their messaging aligned across all their different methods of communication. The way they solved this, they came up with a really innovative and personalized approach to telling their story, where they actually took it from the perspective of the animal, and they let the animals explain how this project works and how it helps them. I'll show you some examples in a minute. Interesting, they use the Big Give logo all the way through, which has that Christmas kind of look, and the dates, which really drew attention to it being a fixed period of time. And they used one hashtag across all their platforms and one kind of key messaging around my rescue story, so the animal perspective, to tie it all together. They had a really thought through plan for the campaign, and they started working on this well in advance. They weren't rushing around on the day to come up with the stories. In advance of the campaign, they pulled together about 15, 20 stories, some animals, they created the images and used this across their different platforms. So here's what it looked like. So you can see how much more engaging that is than a 30-line description of the project, and all of the statistics about your impact can't really do the same as those amazing eyes and those stories can. So that last slide, this shows what the need was, and then this shows how Open Paw helped. So how did the charity make a difference? But most importantly, how did you, the donor, make a difference? This messaging also made it into a direct mail campaign. So they wrote directly some letters to their supporters, again using images. So it's not kind of standard boring looking letter, it's quite engaging. They've got bold font to draw people's eyes to the most important sections. Also made it onto their website, so this was a header and a slider for save the date around the campaign, again using some amazing images. And I really like this kind of quite cheeky slider up here: dog person, cat person, why choose? Help twice as many animals with one donation. So keeping it a bit upbeat alongside really demonstrating the need, and it makes the donor the hero of the story. Again, this also made it onto social media. So this is some Facebook posts, which you can see reached quite a lot of people and got some really great engagements, 510 engagements, lots of likes and 1920 shares. So that's really spreading the word. For a small charity without huge investment into their marketing resource, they had some real success with this. And a key thing I think is around the messaging, but also around the planning. So if you can take just 15 minutes, 20 minutes after this webinar today to think through, look at all those different channels we've talked about, think about how that could work for your organization and put it into a plan, that will make your life far less stressful come around to the campaign. I really advise drafting as much as you can in advance, scheduling it all as far ahead as you can, getting the whole team involved as well. So thinking about different angles, they might have ideas on messaging, or they might have photos and stories that you don't know about. So definitely get them involved in this planning as well. So we're coming towards the end of this now. Some few final tips from the big give on this. Again, don't reinvent the wheel. Use your tried and tested channels, which are working really most effectively for you at the moment. How do your donors like to be communicated with? You might want to use this as an opportunity to test some new approaches, but don't neglect the ones that you know work as well. Do the maths. I really like this one. So don't make it guesswork. If you have any statistics or analytics on how many people tend to open your emails or click through, or perhaps you've done this before and seen what the conversion rate was, make sure you're being realistic about how many people you will need to reach to hit your target then. Finally, do contact info@thebiggive if you have any questions. Thank you so much for joining me this afternoon. We have 10 minutes or so for some questions. Myself and Sahil will be on the chat box now. And again, I would really like to hear any experiences you've had or any stories or examples you've seen from other charities as well. Can be really inspiring. Gemma asks, what's a good way to build momentum in the week? A good idea to give a daily totalizer. Yeah, I love that idea. Definitely. So keeping it updated, keeping it fresh, keeping it accurate. And especially we know that donors, some donors like to be the first one in the door. They want to be the trailblazers, but lots of donors want to give to something that they know is going to succeed. So if you can go to someone and say, we have just £500 left to raise to hit our target. Can you be part of that? Can you help us tip it over? That could be really powerful as well. You might not want to send a daily email to everyone. That's probably overkill. But definitely social media can do with daily posts or even more than daily. And your website as well, keeping that up to date with the totalizer and other forms as well. Great question from Helen. Do you have any tips for keeping people engaged if or when the match pot funding is exhausted? I think that's a really good point, and we do know that oftentimes people exceed their target, which is amazing. So certainly people do keep giving beyond that. Definitely the pool is the match funding, but one of the key things to do is that this isn't a one-off campaign. This is a way to really build your donors' engagement with your organization. So if your storytelling is working, lean into that, build that and that. So you can talk about what more, if you've raised your £5,000, what more could another £2,000 help you achieve as an organization? Really celebrate that you've hit the target. It shows that you're successful, but also to keep talking about the need and how there's still more to do. And that kind of reminds me as well, something we talked about in one of the earlier webinars is that stewardship is so key, because you don't want to just be talking to these donors once a year when it comes to the campaign. You want to be engaging them throughout the year about what their donation's done, how the organization is doing, how the people that they heard about in their campaign are doing as well. Yeah, great point from Sahil. If you haven't attended the other webinars that we've been doing this series, do check out the recordings and the slides because there's some other brilliant examples there. There's a whole webinar about kind of crafting your message as well, one about planning. So have a look at those for other examples of what organizations have done and how that succeeded for them. So it's a really inspiring, I think. Any final questions for the chat box for myself or Sahil or anyone else on the group?